All right, I'll get moving. Welcome everyone to our CiC's webinar on mastering the art of sleep. My name is Harry Saville. I'm a managing consultant psychologist here at CiC. My background, I studied psychology and neuroscience before working in workplace psychology, doing a lot of one-to-one support and coaching before moving into training and consulting, helping teams, organizations build more inclusive and supportive cultures. So I'm very happy to be with you here today to talk about sleep, how we can improve our sleep, the importance of sleep. Something that's very important to me. It's something that I've not been great with in my early life, 20s, in my teens as well. Something I've really tried to get a grasp of in recent years. So yeah, really excited to go through this session today and hear your experiences as well. What we'll go through today is what happens when we sleep. So really deep diving into some of the neuroscience around that. We won't do that in too much depth, just a little bit there. And the purpose of that, the impact of sleep that it has on our physical and mental health. And then thinking about how we build those positive sleep habits. We've got a few ideas that might be useful. It'd be good to hear kind of your experiences and what you found helpful as well. As always with our sessions, this is going to be an interactive session. So we'll have opportunities to discuss your sleep habits. I see a few people in the chat already discussing that. Kind of go through what you find helpful, how much sleep you get, and also how you feel maybe when you're not getting great sleep. So please feel free to share your thoughts in the chat. Keep that conversation going. Some of the things you share might be really helpful for other people on this call today. So let's start off with a little brief introduction. So the role of sleep to start with. Sleep plays an important part in kind of a lot of brain functioning. So helps to improve memory and learning, increases attention, creativity, and aids in making decisions as well. Getting less than, it said, a certain amount of sleep a night as well can heighten the risk of harm to physical or mental health. So it's really important in kind of maintaining our physical and mental health. So what I'd like to start with is really kind of what makes us tired, thinking about that neuroscience around sleep. So first of all, so our sleep cycles are governed by our circadian rhythms. So these circadian rhythms are 24-hour cycles where our bodies release certain chemicals at certain times during the day or night. So it's nudging us to do certain activities at certain points during the day. So they direct a wide variety of functions. It could be our wakefulness, our body temperature, metabolism, and also the release of certain hormones at certain points during the day. One of the most important chemicals involved in this process is melatonin, which is a hormone that makes us feel drowsy. It's produced, if you look at this diagram, in the pineal gland. How this works, when the retina is exposed to light, a signal is relayed to an area of the brain called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, a bit of a mouthful, which then stops the pineal gland from producing that melatonin and keeps us awake. But when that nucleus does not detect light, it sends a signal to the pineal gland to start producing melatonin, which then in turn tells us to go to sleep, makes us drowsy. So the amount of melatonin in our bodies starts to increase in the evening and peak in the middle of the night, letting us know it's time to sleep. Then it decreases in the morning, allows us to wake up feeling refreshed. What actually happens when we are sleeping? So during a normal sleep period, you progress through 4 or 5 different sleep cycles, and each sleep cycle is made up of 4 different individual sleep stages. So here's a diagram here that shows you those different cycles and all the different stages that are involved in sleep. For those with smartwatches here, this may look like similar to what you see in some of your sleep reports you get each night when you look at how you've slept in the morning. So that we can make some sense of that now here as well. So the 4 stages of sleep are further broken down into 2 categories. You have rapid eye movement sleep, so REM sleep. As you can see there, the REM ridges at the top of each cycle, and also non-REM sleep. So these categories are important because what happens during REM sleep is dramatically different to what happens during non-REM sleep. So I'll go through the different stages now so you get an idea about what is actually happening and those differences there. So first of all, stage one, so that's short, kind of representing the act of dozing off and transitioning into sleep. So that initial kind of starting to wind down, your body's shutting down. In stage two, body and mind slow down as you settle into sleep. So it's easiest to be kind of awoken during these first two stages as well. In stage three, also known as deep sleep, the body's in recovery mode, slowing down even further. At this time, the overall brain activity slows and shows a kind of a telltale pattern of pulses of activity that are believed to help prevent unwanted awakeness as well. I know that for this particular sleep cycle, we can see here, we often start with a more deeper sleep before kind of later kind of the cycles become more into the stage two and stage three later in the sleep cycle. The fourth stage here is REM sleep, so that's a rapid eye movement sleep. So it means exactly what it means, under your eyelids, your eyes are moving around more. During this period, brain activity shoots back up to the level similar to when you're awake. It's a very similar kind of brain activity, which explains why in that period it's associated with more intense dreams. So while breathing and heart rate increases during REM sleep, most muscles are paralyzed, which is why we're not kind of acting out those vivid dreams in those moments. Makes you ask the question as well, kind of what happens when we're sleepwalking, what's the differences there? So each sleep cycle takes between 70 and 120 minutes. In the first sleep cycle of the night, you spend a lot more time in that non-REM sleep. And the majority of REM sleep happens during the second half of the night. So you can see here more deep sleep as like later stages, stage three, stage four at the start of the night, moving more into REM sleep as we start to wake up more. So a little brief overview there of kind of the science about what's happening in our brains when we are sleeping. I can see a lot of you have already started to share this in the chat as we're going, but how many hours of sleep do you get a night if you're willing to share? I have created a poll for this. It'd be good to hear kind of what the majority of people experience. So let me just share this for you now, and then you can all put your thoughts in. So is it less than 5 hours? Is it 5 hours, 6 hours, 7 hours, more than 8 hours? So yeah, please feel free to share kind of what your average amount of sleep you get per night is. Just having a look at the results. So majority of people around 6 to 7 hours. This is pretty good. Few people they're getting less than 5, so it can be quite difficult. Yeah, difficult to get sleep in their daily routine. Some people 5 hours. Some lucky people more than 8 hours. So I think they'll probably have some good tips, hopefully, for us near the end. Yeah, definitely. So the 6 to 7 hours seems to be the most popular. So officially, just looking at how much sleep we actually need. So experts recommend that adults sleep between 7 to 9 hours per night. So I see on this graph as well. This is it's from the American Academy of Sleep Medicine. That's at different parts of our life, we require different levels of sleep as well. So obviously, when we're an infant or towards school age, adolescence, we need more sleep than we do as an adult. So if anyone here has children and notice they sleep more, especially maybe their teenage years, maybe sleeping longer than you would think they need. Sometimes actually they do need that. Sleep is really an important part of that growth period. And as we grow up, that's something we really need more of. As we get older, that's something we need less of. Some interesting statistics here from Mental Health UK as well. So 20% of people in the UK aren't getting enough sleep. So they've mentioned they feel they could get more sleep. I think based on some of the statistics here as well, I think that resonates with a lot of you here. I think 33% of people getting 6 hours sleep, 15% of people getting 5 hours sleep, 13% of people getting less than 5 hours. So, there's a lot of people here who probably feel they could be getting a bit more sleep. So Another question here. Please feel free to use the chat with this one as well. It's something I've really noticed as I've tried to improve my sleep, kind of how you feel when you've had that good night's sleep. How do you feel when you've had that good night's sleep? What's that difference in your mood, maybe your physically, mentally? What do you really notice? Yeah, amazing. The big one for me, I think I really noticed kind of how your outlook on the day is completely different. Um, Focusing is much better, kind of a positive mood. Refreshing, someone's mentioned, amazing. Um, Still feeling tired sometimes. Maybe I think sometimes people have a lot of sleep, when they have a lot of sleep, sometimes feel a bit groggy. Sometimes that could be linked to what stage of the sleep cycles you've been pulled out of. So sometimes you go into a deeper sleep again, and then sometimes your alarm just pulls you back out, and that can lead to sometimes feeling a bit groggy. More functional, ready for the day, energized, not as many emotions, or being maybe less reactive, revitalized, relieved, more mentally alert, reborn, someone's mentioned. Yeah, so really feeling kind of more positive about everything, more energized, a whole new person. Yeah, something that when I really started trying to get a good night's sleep, it really made me realize, how different you are as a person when you had that less sleep, um, less brain fog, uh, ready and prepared to face the day, more alert, relaxed. Sometimes people are saying a bit still tired, sometimes worse. Maybe sometimes there's too much sleep. Can be a difficult, can be a challenge. Productive, refreshed. Yeah, a lot of people saying like I take on the world a whole new, like a different person. So it's interesting. Um, so yeah, thanks for sharing. I've got some other ideas here as well, that might resonate with some of you. But some of the benefits we see from sleep. I'll go through some of these, but please do keep sharing in the chat kind of what resonates with you. Um, what kind of stands out. So, sleep effects, as we said earlier, both are mental and physical health. So, first of all, good sleep improves our cognitive functioning. So, sleep is really necessary for the brain to grow, reorganize, restructure, and make new neural connections. Just as we saw earlier with this amount of sleep we need at different stages during our lives. Early stages of our life, we need more sleep, probably because there's more growth, kind of reorganizing, restructuring happening. So plenty of rest can also help, you maintain your attention, stay focused throughout the day. So a lot of you have mentioned that in the chat already, kind of feeling that extra kind of cognitive benefits. But when we don't sleep, your body and brain don't always function properly the next day. So this can affect things like your attention span, concentration, reaction times. You have more risk of making mistakes or having an accident. So we see the knock-on effect negatively. We don't have that good sleep. Linked to that as well, forming long-term memories. So as you sleep, your brain begins to organize, process all the information you've taken in during that day. It can convert all those short-term memories into long-term memories. It's more likely to convert those short-term memories into long-term memories. So this helps us learn. So, if you're, new in a role, or you're still in education, that's, I think, really helpful in embedding all those new learnings or new processes. Also means that when you wake up, it's often why you see things more clearly as well. Helps with maintaining a healthy weight. So you're more likely to choose foods that are kind of high in calories later in the day if you um, yeah, it's also thought that being sleep deprived could increase your appetite because it changes your level of hormones that signal hunger and fullness in your body. If you're feeling tired, it may also mean that you're less likely to exercise. It has that kind of real knock-on effect to how we're able to manage our weight as well. Heart health. So when you sleep, your heart rate and blood pressure naturally drops to allow your heart time to kind of rest and recover. But a lack of sleep can leave your blood pressure kind of elevated for longer periods of time, increase your risk of developing maybe high blood pressure. It also leads to kind of diabetes, coronary heart disease, and strokes as well. So not getting enough sleep can really lead to kind of inflammation, causing fatty deposits to build up in your arteries, which can also lead to kind of the coronary heart disease later. So it all has a knock-on effect to our physical health as well. Regulating blood sugar. So as sleep is involved in regulating blood sugar, Poor sleep can lead to kind of high levels of sugar in your blood, which can cause diabetes, affect our immune system. Sleep gives your body the time it needs to rest and repair while you're sick. So during sleep, the body produces growth hormones necessary development in children, adolescents. We spoke about that earlier as well. Which also repairs tissues and cells in people of all ages. So it helps you kind of physically recover. It also helps kind of produce the cytokines that during sleep, which really help support our immune systems and fight infections. So you're more likely to have a stronger immune system and have that stronger physical health as a consequence. On the mental side, so mental health side, so reduce stress first of all. So when you're feeling stressed, your body releases the stress hormones such as cortisol, which can lead to you kind of keeping you awake. A good night's sleep can have an anti-stress effect and relax the symptoms in your body responsible for this stress response. So it's a bit of maybe a bit of a vicious cycle as well, where getting more sleep helps reduce stress, helps you sleep better. But when you've had less sleep, more stress, it makes you unable to sleep in the future as well. So that can have more of a knock-on effect. Mood. So sleep restores the body and improves energy levels. So waking up well restored can have kind of a positive impact on an individual's mood. In contrast, if you don't have adequate sleep, a higher risk of experiencing mental distress. A chronic lack of sleep can lead to more anxiety, depression, irritability. And putting all that together, kind of how that impacts our relationships. So the amount of sleep you can get can affect, how your language, reasoning, communication skills, which are all key factors in how we build relationships and relate to others. So you think about what we spoke about there, the impact on mood, communication, cognitive functioning, stress. So bad night's sleep can make it more difficult to control your emotions, communicate with others. It can sometimes lead to conflict. So on that note, we spoke about a few of the benefits there, thinking about the benefits we can have that sleep can have, but what are some of the implications as well? We spoke about some of that on the previous slide of not having a good night's sleep. So it'd be good to hear in the chat from all you all, kind of how do you feel you've had a bad night's sleep? What are the differences that you notice in yourself? Ratty, someone's mentioned. Yeah, that's something. Yeah, that's something that is really something that stands out for me. So maybe a bit more irritable. Eating more, yes, that impacts on our kind of appetite. More likely to eat more, kind of feeling likely to get more calories in. Drowsy, tired, bad-tempered, angry and stressed, grumpy, stressed, moody. Yeah, someone's mentioned what already helps them as well. Kind of the exercise definitely helps. Less productive, procrastinating more. I think grumpy seems to be a common theme. I think here, kind of ratty, grumpy, irritable. So you can already see that kind of knock on to the to our mood and our relationships as well. Off mood, overwhelmed, tearful. Yes, the kind of impact on our emotions as well, kind of how our emotions feel more on the surface. Weary, exhausted, low motivation, increase in pain, headaches, so kind of physical responses as well. So tired, yeah, kind of the knock-on effects that maybe you can get through the morning, but kind of how you feel late in the day as well. It's can really catch up with you. Goldfish head, someone's mentioned it as. Apologies if I'm missing anyone's comments. Just there's obviously a lot of people in the chat here putting a lot of thoughts in. Body unable to regulate temperature properly, so maybe feeling colder. Yeah, that's definitely one. Someone's mentioning in the chat here about I think we'll have to reach out privately about the AI side. I'm not sure. Worried to drive. Yeah, so worried about how that affects you. Worried about kind of functioning and in fact kind of like as we said on the previous slides, impact on risk taking. So a few impacts here on kind of mental health. So the bad sleep and mental health. So a lot of these we spoke about already. So more impacted by symptoms of existing mental health problems, a higher risk of that anxiety, depression, um, struggling to concentrate, to make plans, decisions, loneliness or isolation, feeling irritable or not having energy to do things, being more affected by physical health problems. So you spoke about that link with the immune system. So you can see why that would happen. So these are from Mind UK. An interesting study here from a Whitehall study in 2007. So British researchers looked at how sleep patterns affected the kind of mortality of over 10,000 British civil servants over 20 years. So those who had cut sleep from 7 to 5 hours a night nearly doubled their risk of death from all causes. So it has a massive impact on all our, as we said, physical health, mental health. Um, and lack of sleep doubled the risk of death from cardiovascular disease. So we discussed a lot of this in the previous slide, kind of how that can happen in terms of the risk to our heart, blood sugar, cardiovascular health. So a lot of, yeah, exactly, something you can just really see the impact there. So it's hopefully nothing to stress about. Hopefully when we come to the strategies, we can talk about how we can manage that when we're actually trying to sleep as well. And linking that to work, so thinking about, you've all mentioned kind of how you focus, how you concentrate. So sleep deprivation can lead to the following risks at work. So we already spoken about poor decision making, decreased communication, performance deterioration, risk of becoming distracted, lower mood, inflexibility, and it all kind of feeds into what we'd call presenteeism. So for those who aren't aware what that is, it's where people maybe still come to work, but not be able to be their best self, not being as productive as they can be, probably due to some of these characteristics and symptoms we see here. So yeah, you can see the kind of the impact in our teams, in our organizations as well. So skip the slide. So great to hear in the chat kind of when do you have trouble sleeping and what causes this? So if you're willing to share, is there any themes you see? When do you have trouble sleeping? What affects that? It'd be good to hear from you what kind of what can be a cause of your sleep issues. So someone mentioned their partner snoring is a big one. Yeah, that's can be quite challenging to deal with. Chronic pain. Yeah, I can imagine that's really difficult challenging to deal with. That could probably lead to a lot of worries and stress as well, an impact on your mental health as well. Worries, stresses, something a lot of us can experience. Those kind of ruminating thoughts. Often we get down at the end of the day, and all those thoughts kind of running through our heads, kind of over and over again. That can be really challenging to switch off, can't it? A lot of around partners snoring here. It's probably a big one. Unfortunately, we haven't got any advice for that one. Probably need a separate session for that. Anxiety, yeah, again, that kind of stress, rumination, really challenging. Brain not shutting off, looming deadlines, kind of feeding into that. Our smartphone, yeah, we've all kind of got a device that's always trying to take our attention, keep us kind of locked into different apps. And we talk about that in the next couple of slides, kind of why that's affecting us. You can already start probably thinking about that from the melatonin chat we spoke about before. My children, so it's not just necessarily partners, but also children as well. If they're not sleeping well, can affect your sleep. Absolutely. There's a lot around stress, anxieties. We've mentioned work stresses here as well, and worries. Um, so yeah, I think can be a common theme. I'll talk about in the next slides, looking at what a lot of adults see as the main reason why they struggle sleeping. Someone's mentioned in the chat, so make my best work solutions when trying to sleep and not being able to. Time seems to bring clarity, but it's not ideal. Yeah, it's kind of thinking, how do you use when those thoughts are going through your head, how do you compartmentalize that? That can be quite challenging. Yeah, overthinking, that kind of rumination, going through things over and over again. I think that seems to be a running theme, kind of overthinking things, running through things, especially when it comes to stresses, worries, thinking about work, heavy workload, someone's mentioned here as well, planning for the next day. Yeah, health conditions as well. So it's not necessarily just those worries about work, but also our own, if we have our own physical health conditions. But also, if our children have needs that we need to care for, that can be really challenging, both for our own sleep, but also for our own mental health as well. Restless legs, coffee, yeah, big one. Stimulants. If anyone's thinking about getting a coffee after lunch, we'll give you some reasons to think twice about that in a bit. Um, Stress from work trips the next day, yeah, kind of taking you out of your normal routine. We're all creatures of habit, so when you're doing things slightly differently, thinking about where you have to go the next day, especially if it's something quite stressful, can be quite overwhelming. Um, when I'm overthinking or having an important kind of animal event the day after, uh, either I guess for your pets or if you're working with animals, um, anxiety about going to the office, so you have stress about being in office environments. It could be for multiple reasons, but yeah, absolutely. If they have those days where you're going to the office, that might cause a lot of anxiety. Yeah, having children, stress at work, menopause as well. Someone's mentioned a really good point, kind of the effect of that and how that can affect us cognitively, how it affect our sleep. So yeah, totally. That's a really good thing to bring up. I'm sure there's lots of people here who can resonate with that. Um, Kind of our relationships prior to bed as well, kind of arguing prior to bed. Yeah, definitely. That's one can be really stressful. Someone's mentioned their pets, so not just children, our cats as well, which I guess also are kind of our children. Waking up in the middle of the night, I've seen plenty of videos of that's when the cat seems to want to run around the most. So I can imagine that being quite difficult. I know my experience with having my pets in the past. They seem to know when it's breakfast time and wake you up before your alarm does. Um, Money worries, yeah, that's definitely a big one. Unresolved problems, overthinking. I think it's a running theme for a lot of what we've seen today. Not being able to switch off. So thank you everyone for sharing that. It's really helpful to see. Um, so I'll share a few others here, see if any of these resonate with you. Please do keep sharing. Someone shared an espresso martini before bed. I'm sure that's probably a joke, but well, maybe on a weekend night out, maybe more likely. But yeah, that's probably rocket fuel, isn't it? Probably not the best thing to have before bed. Um, so a few other stresses here or causes. So stress levels, caring responsibilities. A few of you have spoken about in the chat as well. Impacted circadian rhythms, so night shifts as well, traveling on different schedules. Lifestyle factors, a few of you mentioned caffeine consumption, alcohol, um, the dietary requirements as well, excessive noise or light when trying to sleep. So something we'll talk about on the coming slides about how we manage our sleep, what we can do differently. Thank you everyone putting their thoughts in the chat. There's lots of thoughts about what causes those poor sleep problems. And I think we can start seeing those trends about what is affecting us. There's one more here as well. Good TV series. Watching the next episode. So yeah, being locked into that Netflix spiral. Not being able to switch off. That's definitely a difficult one. Some really good stats here from Mental Health UK, looking at some of the main reasons why people struggle with their sleep. So a few of you mentioned kind of the impact on money worries. So yeah, 25% of adults in the UK cite money worries as negatively impacting their sleep. 37% of adults in the UK cite work as reducing the amount of control they feel they have over their sleep. So it's a massive number. And a lot of you have mentioned that in the chat already, kind of stresses about the next day or ruminating about deadlines or thinking about workload. So as organizations, managers on the call here, you can start thinking about is what we're doing in our teams and in our organization affecting our team members, our employees outside of work as well. And what can we do differently with that? So before we go into some ideas about what we can do differently, it'd be good to hear from you. What helps you sleep? It's a bit more positive now. So is there anything you've noticed that really kind of helps you get sleep quicker? People have started mentioning so sleep casts, audiobooks. Yeah, books seem to be a big one there. So audiobooks and books. Brown noise, someone's put in the chat says, I'm not sure what the differences are between the different coloured noises, but if anyone's willing to share in the chat, please do. But yeah, different kind of noises that can help you kind of drift off and block out those external noises is really great. Calming podcasts, that switching TV off an hour before bed, absolutely kind of having that technology switch off is really important. So white noise someone's put in there is like a deep brown noise. Might need one of you to explain the difference. But yeah, both those, it's really useful in a way of kind of blocking out that those distractions, especially people on the call who are more sensitive sleepers. Music, yeah, it's a good one. And I was working with someone a couple of years ago who said they had a particular podcast they listened to and they always fell asleep on the same, when they got to the same song. It's almost like they're conditioned to fall asleep during that music, which is interesting. Leaving my phone in another room, it's less likely to grab it and start playing around with it. It's a good one. Instagram's an interesting one. So normally we associate kind of social media and looking at our phones being unhelpful with sleep. So whoever put Instagram down as being helpful, please do feel free to elaborate on how you find that helpful. Not drinking anything much before bed. A cold bedroom's getting the temperature right, definitely useful. Earplugs, I know I've definitely used in the past. Living on a busy road, something that's really important. Exercise, breathing exercises, a few of you have mentioned as well. So yeah, kind of benefits of controlling our breathing and how we'll talk about this in the coming slides as well, kind of the impact of deep breathing and how that can really help with sleep. I know a few of you mentioned reading, something I find really helpful too, helps you switch off completely. Please keep sharing. I'll move on to the next slides and talk through some different ideas about what we can do differently. So for me, this is a really important first step. It's not about kind of being in the moment, trying to sleep and kind of reacting there. It's like proactively what we do in the build-up. So understanding that what you do during the day all contributes to how you sleep that evening. So I'm sure we've all been there, and you really need to sleep, and you've kind of, I know I've felt that sometimes you're kind of in bed thinking, like, I wish I could just press a button and just shut down. But you feel yourself kind of still going, and your mind's still racing, your body's quite restless. So it's difficult to know what you can do in the moment. So whenever I've been working with people on their kind of sleep patterns, always thinking about kind of let's focus on what you can do in your control. And it's easier to think about that kind of from the start of the day. So getting into a good routine is really helpful. It's just easy to sleep. So it's easy to control when you get up, when you fall asleep. You know you can set an alarm and get up at a certain time and set that routine. That helps set you up for the end of the day. You've already had that good starting point. It's easy for us to, when we've kind of had a bad night's sleep the night before, to kind of sometimes sleep in a bit longer, maybe not go to the gym, maybe not exercise. It's really setting yourself up for the start of the day, get up at a good time. Setting that routine helps have a knock-on effect later in the day. Eating breakfast within 30, 45 minutes of waking, because this sends an important message to your brain, that you're in a well-fed environment. So that's really important for how you will sleep at the end of the day as well. It doesn't have to be a massive meal, just something, nutritious, is small, and that doesn't need to be massive. Can be really helpful. Staying well hydrated is something we're all guilty of maybe not prioritizing at times. And really being hydrated helps flush our systems of waste products and toxins, which helps sleep become more refreshing. So that's really important to bear in mind. So we're looking at kind of 2 to 3 liters a day, more if you're doing exercise as well. So bearing that in mind if you're exercising and trying to build in some more than that. Avoiding stimulants, so that's things like nicotine, alcohol, caffeine, refined sugars. They all play a part in creating a kind of fatigue cycle and poor sleep. So even with our evening meals, kind of what sugars are we having? Are we having? Is there anything in our meal? Is there any drinks we're having in that later in the day that can impact on our sleep? A few of you mentioned in the chat as well the impact of caffeine. Yeah, I think we're trying to no more than 200 to 300 milligrams of caffeine per day is what you should be aiming for. So to put that into context, one shot of espresso is 100 milligrams of caffeine, and caffeine itself has a half-life of around 5 hours. So if you think about what that looks like throughout your day, if you're drinking a coffee or tea at 5 p.m., you will still have half of that caffeine in your blood at around 10 p.m. So after the session, if you start thinking about, like we said earlier, think about having a coffee or a tea, start working out when's the best time for me to cut or stop having this, if I want to wind down properly at the end of the day. A few of you mentioned exercise well being helpful. So yeah, exercise and movement leads to better sleep. It produces those that adenosine, which is useful for stopping adrenaline, keeping us awake. So you really want to tire yourself out. It's really helpful. Exercise can also help you, lose excess weight, improve our breathing as well, which is also really helpful. So these are all the little things you can do at the start of the day, in your morning to your afternoons, that can really help kind of a knock-on effect towards the time when you really want to have that wind down time. So yeah, that wind down time, creating the right environment. So first of all, kind of having that routine first of all as well, following a nighttime routine is really helpful. We're conditioning ourselves and our brain to kind of recognize when it's winding down and it's time to sleep. Doing things in the same order can be really helpful in that evening routine. It helps your brain realize that you are winding down. Similar to the story I spoke about before, one of my previous clients working through their improving their sleep and having that playlist they listen to, because they listen to the same order, kind of help them kind of switch off and they fell asleep at the same song every time. Creating the right environment. So you're thinking about taking that time to relax before you go to bed. To create that calming environment, you're more relaxed. If you have things going through your mind, can you try writing a to-do list for the next day? Reading a book is a good one. A lot of you mentioned in the chat, and that's something I find really helpful. Helps you kind of switch off from everything and focus in, have that kind of escapism end of the day. A lot of you mentioned listening to music or an audio book. Temperature as well, kind of is not too hot. Someone mentioned in the chat, the right room temperature, making sure it's not too cold, not too hot. And thinking about the lights as well. So keeping the bedroom as dark as possible. Thinking back to that, what we spoke about with melatonin, we're thinking about how do we create that build up and not have lights coming into our brain and triggering that to stop or blocking that. So heavy curtains, blackout blinds, cover lights, electrical items. A lot of you mentioned kind of avoiding technology, so that electronic sundown, switching off technology an hour before bed, so any lights from the devices can switch off and prevent that melatonin level rise, keep us awake, keep our minds kind of racing. So avoiding phones, TV, anything like that an hour before can be really helpful. And lastly, I think trying to think about kind of having that positive outlooks, trying to focus on that gratitude, optimism, can be difficult when there's worries and things we're stressing about, but really trying to focus in on those positive things to be optimistic about can be really helpful as well. And lastly, breathing. So something about learning how to breathe optimally can really help your sleep, something we'll talk about in the coming slides. There's a good quote here I wanted to share. It's from Professor Russell Foster, he's from Oxford University, who said, brush your teeth in the dark to help sleep. Which I thought it was really, really interesting because we talk about all this wind down routine and avoiding lights and helping ourselves switch off to help us get into that wind down time and sleep state. But then what's the last thing we do every time before we go to bed? So we brush our teeth in probably the brightest room of the house. So trying to learn to kind of reduce those lights or brush your teeth in the dark can really, really helpful. It always makes me laugh whenever I always think about this when I'm brushing my teeth and just realize how poorly designed some of our bathrooms are. So something to consider if you're thinking of one thing to take away from today, that can make a big difference. And then just thinking about breathing, kind of what we're talking about when we talk about the value of breathing. Why breathing? Why is that helpful? So it activates the parasympathetic nervous system. So that's that rest and digest system. Helps slow our heart rate, lower blood pressure, relax our muscles, or kind of helps reduce those feelings of anxieties. For those people who are experiencing kind of those ruminating thoughts, stresses, anxieties, really deep breathing can help calm ourselves physically, but also mentally, which is really valuable. Regulates heart rate and blood pressure, spoken about, improves our emotional regulations, kind of outside of sleep as well, helps us think more clearly in stressful situations. Reduces stress hormones. As we said, cortisol can really be a blocker to our sleep. So if we're doing that, it can really help to reduce, that cortisol and help us sleep better. And it also enhances mindfulness, present moment awareness. If we're staying more in the moment, anchored in the moment, we're less likely to be worried about what's coming up, and being more present and staying calm in that moment can be really helpful. I personally find this really helpful in calming, kind of a meditative exercise. If I find myself ruminating into the night, try and focus on my breathing and sort of calm yourself down. So either something you could try before bed, or if you're in those moments in the middle of the night, can be something really helpful. Just looking at the chat now, if anyone's put any thoughts in. Um, yeah, someone's mentioned with the bathroom, make sure it's definitely toothpaste you've used in the dark. Yeah, maybe taking it outside the bathroom might be a good tip for that one. Make sure you're not using anything else. Yeah, someone's mentioned they take all their lights down low in the night progress. That's really helpful, kind of helping dim everything. Yeah, and someone's also mentioned maybe lack of sunlight affects sleep, maybe affects our drowsiness sometimes. Well, I know in the UK at the moment it's one of the nicest days of the year, and it makes a massive difference to alertness. Maybe that has an impact. It'd be interesting to see kind of the impacts. I guess also linked to vitamin D as well. It's an interesting one. Um, Lastly, a few thoughts here on optimizing sleep during sleep. Obviously, not much you can do when you're fast asleep, but a few thoughts here if you do wake up. A lot of you have mentioned kind of brown noise, white noise, earplugs for sensitive, if they kind of find themselves waking up in the night or they find it helpful to get them to sleep. Um, Always very helpful. It can help be as simple as kind of leaving a fan on, or there's tracks or apps for it as well to be found online for free. Can make falling asleep in the first place easier. Makes it easy to avoid or ignore those little sounds that can wake you up. Like I said, I know I found earplugs really helpful, help block out those noises from outside, especially in summer when you have to have the windows open. There's more noises there, so having something like that can be really helpful, keep you in a deeper sleep. Um, I think coming back to what we said before, really not worrying about if we are getting enough sleep, that can sometimes be a vicious cycle where because we're worrying about the amount of sleep we find it difficult to get to sleep. So we spoke about a lot of the negatives of having bad sleep. What's really important is, focusing on the quality rather than quantity of sleep. And one way to bear that in mind as well is not checking, the time. It's very easy in the middle of the night to wake up and check the time, and then you start calculating. It can be quite disruptive that in itself, can't it? You start calculating and assessing, thinking about, oh, if I fall asleep now, I'll get 4 hours sleep or 3 hours sleep. Start bringing up the worries of the day to come as well, leaving you wide awake. So obsessing about not sleeping itself can lead to more stress and anxiety. It makes it even harder to sleep. So try and avoid looking at the clock is really helpful. Um, like I said, focusing on the sleep quality rather than quantity. You can sleep sometimes for 5 hours, but it can be really good quality sleep. At the weekend sometimes I know I've slept for longer, but the quality of sleep is much worse. I feel worse on that day as well. So really focusing on that is useful. And don't beat yourself up about it as well. It can if you can't sleep, then rest is still useful, still better than nothing. So I think even if you're just there resting, that's still better than being fully awake. A few other resources here, just to bear in mind. If a lot of you have already got some apps. If you want to share the apps you find helpful as well, please feel free to share. In the chat, there's a few here. So like Sleep Melodies, it's on Android and Apple phones. It's free. Sleep Cycle, Android and Apple as well. It's a good book here. It's a Tired but Wired. Some Dr. Narina Ramlakhan. So a few of these points from this book we've used in this session today. So if you want to learn more about sleep and how you can improve it, some good books there. And Why We Sleep. So Matthew Walker, another book there. Someone's mentioned in the chat, brilliant book, that one. So easy to read with nuggets of understanding about sleep. So yeah, it's good review there already. Before we move on, feel free to, if anyone's got any other tips or tricks in the chat, please feel free to share. Just looking at the chat now. Yeah, someone's mentioned in the chat, so my mantra is at least I'm resting, I'm comfortable, I'm safe. It helps absolutely, kind of, at least you've rested. It's still better than nothing. So I think worst case, if you've got that time to rest, just yeah, focusing on that is really helpful. Someone mentioned I'm watching the sleep course included in BBC Maestro, but I haven't decided yet. I haven't decided yet if I find it useful. Going to work helps me fall asleep. Yeah, so kind of having that busyness of the day, it's kind of maybe having that routine is helpful as well. you've got that busy day. Perhaps you then get home and be kind of exhausted. So hopefully reading that book in bed will help me sleep too. I find if I can't sleep because my mind is racing, I listen to waves crashing and it interrupts those thoughts and I drift off to sleep. Yeah, so again, finding those sounds that work for you. Someone mentioned in-depth research on the breathing cure, the benefit of nose breathing as well. So if you want to research that, Patrick McKeown. Something not meaning to sound crude, but partner bed sport might help too. Yeah. Um, One note on that, it's nothing too intense before bed. It's important as well. So you know have that adrenaline to rise. So yes, so keeping that in check. Uh, Some of the GPs recommended Sleepio. I just started using it. Apparently, it works really well. Yeah. So if you one more here as well, the civil service training course sent me to sleep. Yeah, I think ironically, it's maybe we'll get a recording of that for yourself at home. Few last points here before we just open up to any other questions. So prioritizing sleep. So employees need to recognize, this is a quote here from Dr. Kat Liddell, so looking at the ROI of sleep, the return on investment of sleep from 2020. So employers need to recognize the crucial role that sleep plays in the productivity and health of their employees, and need to make arrangements that support their daily routines of their workforce with the objectives of improving and maintaining good sleep health. So really seeing that is really important. And a few kind of notes here on kind of why prioritizing sleep is really important from Good Path, the workplace sleep programs. So 33% of employers offered some type of sleep support program. So that's in 2020. However, 78% of employees would value an employer-provided sleep program, and 44% of employees surveyed saying that quality of sleep significantly impacted their ability to fully contribute at work. So any kind of leaders, managers here, thinking about how they can support their teams, start thinking about, how you can help them prioritize their sleep. Are there boundaries there? How are we role modeling good practice in the workspace? Make sure people have time to switch off. How can you promote that? On that note as well, if you need any support with this, obviously in your teams, you can think about what the boundaries are, what we can do to support our teams. At CiC, we're also excited that we've put together our own little healthy sleep program, which can help to implement in your teams as well if there's something you want to look at. So it really takes that consultative and coaching approach to your teams to help them build their own tailored positive sleep habits, practice these techniques, and reflect on their own progress as well. So as we all know, knowing the right thing to do and doing the right thing is not always the same thing. It can be very challenging. So pre-programmed questionnaire to start with. We'll look at kind of your current sleep habits, general well-being, how you're feeling at work. Before we go into a deep dive sleep habit workshop, looking at similar to what we've looked at today, kind of some of the challenges of sleep, what the importance of sleep is. Also looking at creating your tailored kind of wind down routine and what kind of what you can do and kind of put your own schedule and obstacles, looking at what your current schedule and obstacles are to good sleep, and signposting to further resources as well. In that stage two, looking at kind of trying that sleep routines, you've got an opportunity to try that, give you some, that workbook to track your progress, create your own checklist as well. And lastly, kind of reflection workshop, because you can have a good plan about what we want to do, but it doesn't always work in practice. So coming back together and reflecting on kind of what went well, what we could do differently, review our new habits and see if anyone has any workarounds they found in their work as well. So I think it's a useful way of kind of reflecting what we've done well, what we can improve on, and then really building those habits for the future. And then at the end, comparing the pre and post program data to review the impact healthy sleeping habits have on a team's well-being and productivity. So lastly, it'd be good to hear kind of what your personal action plans are. We're saying coaching sessions, so it's a lot of information there to go through. But start thinking about for your week, kind of what you're going to start doing, what can you do differently It's the only thing you can continue doing. It's the only thing you can stop doing. I'll leave this here while we open up to questions as well in the Q&A. While we're doing this, I'm just going to open up one more of the polls we've got. So feel free to add your answers to this as well as we're going along. So one question here. So what if your problem is not falling asleep or waking up several times during the night and not being able to get back to sleep for an hour or longer? Yeah, this is something that happens quite regularly. So, you know, as you saw in those sleep cycles, we can fall into a deep sleep, then come back out into REM sleep as we go. So it's normal to wake up in the middle of the night. But yeah, in that period where we wake up, and we sort of spoke about in some of those strategies, thinking about not looking at the clock, maybe practicing those breathing exercises, and just being conscious as well, that rest is also okay. So I think bearing that in mind is also useful. It's very easy in those moments, and I've been there. You wake up in the middle of the night, you start stressing about the following day and what's coming. It's really trying to focus in on the present and not looking at the clock, as we said. It's really important. Someone mentioned they started using yoga breathing techniques. That's really positive. Yeah, so that's something that really helps to kind of calm the mind and our physical self as well. So that's something that's really, really useful. Someone mentioned, why can't I fall asleep on a sun lounger on the beach if lights is keeping you awake? I mean, yeah, I mean it's not going to permanently keep you awake. It's something that is going to keep you more active, but at some point, you could be more exhausted to the point where you're more likely to fall asleep. And sometimes, yeah, it's calming. It's going to let you fall asleep. So it's not going to permanently keep. It's not going to be the only factor that's going to keep you awake. But it's going to make you more awake. Question here is that I find it difficult to sleep when you are physically too tired. Sorry, bear with me. Pick the question up. I find it difficult to sleep when you are physically too tired on a long day at work. How do you calm down the adrenaline? So that's a challenging one. So yeah, I find it difficult to sleep when you are physically too tired on a long day at work. Yeah, so maybe it could be a mixture of things. It's the adrenaline, maybe what's happened during the day, maybe thinking through what's happened during that day, to find ways to calm down. So maybe finding ways of taking your mind off what's happened in that day. Because physically tired often leads to people being more able to sleep. But I think that finding ways to kind of calm the mind as well could be helpful. Just looking at any other questions in the Q&A. Nothing. I'll go back to the chat to see if anyone's got any other questions. Someone mentioned in the chat, I've been told by my GP to cut out all tea and coffee, even decaffeinated. Day 3, it's hard. Yeah, so even when we've built up a tolerance to having caffeine and tea and coffee in our diet, it takes a while to come off that. So yeah, first couple of days can be really difficult, but keep persevering. I'm sure by week 1 or week 2 it'll be a lot easier. Someone mentioned here, is dementia linked to a lack of sleep? I'm not too sure, to be honest. Worth researching, but someone's mentioned drinking more water. Does that make us go to the restroom more during the night? Yeah, probably. I think more thinking ahead as well to the rest of the day. Now, obviously not piling all that water intake at the end of the day. Thinking about throughout the whole day, are we drinking enough water? Maybe tailoring off towards the end of the night, end of the day. Sorry. Someone's mentioned a really interesting fact so that there's caffeine in chocolate as well. And you think there are refined sugars in chocolate, so it's that double whammy of those things that can really impact on our sleep. Are there light awakening clocks good, or sorry, are the light awakening clocks good or a gimmick? I think it could be a useful way of slowly putting you out of sleep. I know a few people have found it helpful. personal preferences with this. Some people might prefer to be in complete darkness until their alarm goes off, and I think it's really down to the individual. So I think if anyone here might have some opinions on that. I might give you some reviews. Um, any other questions? People mention what they're going to try doing, so try and breathing techniques if I wake up during the night. I find I fall asleep whilst watching TV and go straight to bed and I'm wide awake. Yeah, no, I've definitely had that happen to me. It's almost it's kind of kick-started you going, seeing the lights, seeing the TV, kind of taking yourself to bed. It's kind of a bit of a sudden movement, and then it's your kind of brain started up again. Yeah, that could be really challenging. It's almost like you have to start that wind down routine again. Uh, so yeah, I can relate to that. So it makes you, have to bear in mind then how do we kind of control that wind down routine and not let ourselves fall asleep from the front of the TV beforehand. Someone's going to mention they're going to start a more regimented period of work when at home, so maintaining my hours, yeah, allowing yourself to stop work early. The way to see it with that, I think, is really about, we could work long hours, but is that going to impact on me the next day and the next day and the next day? Kind of how I work, my productivity, linking to that presenteeism. So if you set those boundaries and switch off, you can be able to rest better, and then you've got that ability to be more productive the next day. So that long-term benefit. Conscious of time, people need to drop off. Please feel free to. Just seeing in the chat, a few people might probably need to go, but will still be here. So please feel free to keep asking your questions or sharing what you're going to try. So I've mentioned how to stop falling asleep on the sofa around 10 p.m. Yeah, it's kind of I say working backwards. If you want to be if you're getting tired at 10 p.m., what are you doing at 9 p.m. to start kind of that wind down routine? Someone mentioned they like that idea of that gradual dimming of the lights. Sunset mode can help. Yeah, it's kind of someone mentioned that earlier, so maybe it's something for us to try if anyone's got dimmer switches. Chamomile tea, someone's mentioned. Someone mentioned in the chat, so what if you can fall asleep easily all day and struggle to stay awake? I can't sleep as soon as you go to bed. Yeah, it'd be interesting to know to see why that is. I think sometimes those worries come to us when we're going to bed. Kind of almost sometimes we get to that stage where because we know we struggle with sleep, we go and then we're kind of overthinking it, thinking about sleep a lot more. So that can be a really challenging situation. Someone mentioned they're going to continue meal plan, work clothes, so work clothes plan during the weekend, so I don't have to wear all these things before I go to sleep each night. Yeah, kind of giving you something less to worry about, so you're able to rest more in the evening. Lastly here, I think I've run out of time. Sorry if everyone if I've missed anyone's questions, but yeah, I hope this session's been helpful. Please do reach out if you've got any other questions. I'm looking forward to